Hi again, wrestling fans, and welcome to another action-packed, exciting hour of the Smoky Mountain Wrestling Re-Watch-Along Project. This is podcasting the way it used to be and the way you like it. This show is a production of the Something Else Podcasting Network, and it is episode number 062 of Smoky Mountain Wrestling from April 3rd, 1993, tape March 22nd, 1993, at the Hayseed High School Gym in Hayseed, Virginia. My name is Arya, his name's Trae, and welcome to the show.
Welcome back.
Yes, I feel like I haven't talked to you in days.
Tease you a lot because we got you on the spot. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back.
Yes. Unfortunately, my name's not Kotter, and this isn't the 70s. So, but we're going to talk about some Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and in case you've never checked out the show, what we do here, it is really quite simple here, folks. We watch every single episode of Smoky Mountain Wrestling, beginning with episode number 1 on February 1st, 1992, and we go all the way live until until episode number 200 on November 26th, 1995. We talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, like my intro right there. The great, the indifferent, the so-so, the okay, the tremendous, the out of this world, the unforgettable, the stuff you've already forgotten. We watch some matches, we listen to some promos, we talk about some angles, and ultimately, we just have some fun for about an hour talking about some old school wrestling. And then at the end of the show, I tell you what else is happening, because I can tell you April 3rd, 1993 until I'm blue in the face. But you may not know what the hell's going on, even though there's probably at least a couple people listening going, hey, I know what's going on the weekend of April 3rd, 1993. Well, shut up. You're going to spoil it for everybody else.
Brother.
Brother.
So I just realized it you named yourself. So
Yes, I did.
You have nobody to blame but yourself for your name not being Cotter. You could have named yourself Cotter.
I could have. In the interest of fairness, my friend who helped me choose a name, that was not one of the names that she read off to me. And if I was a betting person, if it was, I would have said no.
So if I had been your friend, that would have been the top of the list.
You were my friend. You just weren't the person I went to pick a name.
Should have been.
Well, if I ever come out of the closet again, you'll be the first person I go to.
If you ever go back the other way.
There we go. If I go back,
double reversal.
There we go. But then I might have to do a triple reversal because I go back into the closet just to come back out again. This time as Kotter.
So would you then be cis or would you be trans squared?
I don't know.
Double trans.
Yes.
That's the transgender agenda that shitty white people are terrified of.
Yes. It's the way that we just keep switching back and forth with for no reason whatsoever. Because, this is what the world should be afraid of. Anyway, so it's April 3rd, 1993. It's Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and we have some 5-star fucking promos this week. And this is another one of those weeks. It's another one of those weeks where I'm convinced everyone is in a contest to see who can cut the best promo.
Cornette steals the show.
Yeah. Weirdly enough, I think the worst promo, well, the worst promo of the people you'd expect something from was by the Rock and Roll Express.
Yeah, but that's also what you expect from the Rock and Roll Express.
Sure. So it's like, it was like a 2-star promo on a day where we have 5-star promos. But
so I may have made a mistake. I don't know, it wasn't really a mistake. I watched the Bluegrass Brawl, and then I watched this. So, but it was funny on this show. They were still building to the Bluegrass Brawl, even though the show had happened the night before the show aired.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny because last year when they would do, those shows that would air after the big show had already happened, what they would do was like, they do something fun. Like the one time they did a Royal Rumble match, and then the one time they did a 4-way elimination tag match, and the winner would get $5,000. And it's like, yeah. So you did what I told you not to do, because next week we're going to get our Bluegrass Brawl highlights.
Yeah, but I didn't want I wanted more than highlights.
Okay. I feel you. But let's dive into this week's episode. We'll talk about Bluegrass Brawl next week. But for this week, let's go into the intro with Bob Caudle and Dutch Mantel.
Hi, wrestling fans. Welcome to another exciting, action-packed hour of Smoky Mountain Wrestling. Wrestling the way it used to be and the way you like it. I'm Bob Caudle here with my tag partner, of course, Dirty Dutch Mantel. And as we say, fans, we've got an exciting hour for you this week. You're going to see right here in action during this hour, the Rock and Roll Express. Also, we're going to be hearing from Ron Wright and his man, the Dirty White Boy, along with Jim Cornette and the Heavenly Bodies. And also Kevin Sullivan and the Nightstalker against Primetime Brian Lee and White Lightning Tim Horner. Dutch, what have you got on Down and Dirty this week?
Well, I have a special guest, a man who wants to be the next Smoky Mountain Heavyweight Wrestling Champion. Tracy Smothers will be my special guest today on Down and Dirty with Dutch. But before we do anything else, let's pick a Beat the Champ.
Okay, who's going to compete?
The wrestlers are eagerly standing by, awaiting their name to be called. A bunch of names are in the hat. And my name is in here too, I might add. And I'm going to pull the name out. And what does that say, Bob Caudle?
Jimmy Golden.
Jimmy Golden will face Bobby Eaton today. Beat the Champ right here on Smoky Mountain Wrestling today. Stay tuned.
All right, fans, we'll have the action and lots of it when we come back, right after we take this time out.
So Dutch's name is apparently in the Beat the Champ hat, despite the fact that Dutch is here in his khakis and button-down dress shirt and tie. And thankfully, I guess for him, he was not chosen. Instead, it's going to be Jimmy Golden challenging for the Beat the Champ TV title this week.
I mean, Dutch could have stripped down to his drawers and thrown his poncho on, but Jimmy Golden's probably a better choice.
I mean, come on. If Michael Cole could wear his wrestling singlet underneath his suit, Dutch could have worn his singlet too.
Yeah, exactly.
So also we're going to have a whole bunch of promos, and our main event is Nightstalker and Kevin Sullivan versus Primetime Brian Lee and everyone's favorite Tim Horner, because he's got to be on every show we do.
Whose favorite?
Everyone's favorite, Tim Horner. Of all the people named Tim Horner, he's our favorite Tim Horner.
I don't know about this.
Do you know any other Tim Horners?
No, but I'm still not signing on.
Okay. Sounds good. But so let's go to the lead in the leadoff position of our great promos this week. Let's go to Dirty White Boy and Mr. Ron Wright, who are standing by with Bob Caudle.
Fans, we're ringside right now with the legendary Mr. Ron Wright and, of course, his man, the Dirty White Boy. But, Mr. Wright, Tennessee chain matches, they're nothing new to you. As a matter of fact, you're the master of the Tennessee chain matches.
Yeah, you're right, but let me tell you something. I didn't know just how rednecked, ignorant, backwards these hillbillies here in the South were till I got out of the South and got up north. You know, I had to get even up in North Carolina to Duke University to find out what was wrong with my bad heart. I couldn't even, I thought the whole world had a smog over it from pollution. And I got up in New York 2 weeks ago, and the dirty white boy took me to eye specialist, and they burnt my eyeballs with laser. Now I can see everything's clear. But I'm telling you, it's a shame and a disgrace, but now I've come down with something else. They found out up there in New York I've been having attacks. Nobody down here could find out what it was, and they found out I've got asthmatic bronchitis. It has been smothering me to death, and them New York doctors is getting that cleared up on me. But now let me get back to these chain matches, Bob. I am the master. I am the walking, talking, living legend in the world of these chain matches. I had 513 of these chain matches, and I only lost one of them in a 22-year span, and some idiot threw a fifth bottle of liquor from up in the balcony and hit me in the head and knocked me out. It's the only reason I lost that. But I've hunted the world over finding somebody that could get in my shoes and fill them and take care of this chain and do what got to be done, and I found it right here in my beloved dirty white boy. He's going to carry on. I feel sorry for anybody that puts his name on the line and gets in the ring with him in one of these chain matches.
All right, white boy, you got the ball. What you gonna do with it?
I'll tell you exactly what I'm gonna do with the ball. You know, me and Mr. Wright's been in New York City, and I've been going down to Fort Apache in the Bronx, which is the worst place on the face of the earth. I'd climb a street light about anywhere from 2 to 4 o'clock in the morning. I'd bust it out with this chain. I'd come back down, there'd be a gang waiting on me. After I whooped all them, went and had me a little lunch, went back and checked on Mr. Ron Wright. So I've been training real hard. But Tracy Smothers, take a real good look at this chain. 12 foot long, big boy, and I don't think that you've got enough guts to put your wrist at the other end of this. And if you do, it's real simple, Smothers. I'm going to stomp your stinking guts, and then I'm going to shove this chain straight down your throat.
All right.
Okay. I was almost sad that Dirty White Boy had to talk, just because this was just an A+ promo by Mr. Wright.
Yeah.
He is. I got to remember almost writing down word for word what he was saying, but he has no idea. He had no idea how backwards and ignorant the Southern people are. I mean, hey, Mr. Wright, I've known that for years, but hey, it's never too late to learn things.
I resemble that remark.
You're an exception to the rule. But Mr. Wright, and I guess he doesn't actually say, I wrote that he went north to Duke, but he doesn't actually go north to Duke, especially since they're in Virginia, but he goes to Duke to check his heart, and then he thought that, you know, there was a smog in the world because of pollution. Then he goes to New York and they burned his eyeballs with lasers. So now everything is clear, which, by the way, despite everything being clear, thanks to his laser eye surgery, he still wears glasses. That's, you know. And
Fashion.
Yes,
Fashion choice.
It's Drew Carey, you know, in 1993.
Probably the only time that Drew Carey has ever been compared to Ron Wright.
Definitely.
Although
they're both professional wrestlers.
Only one of them is in the WWE Hall of Fame.
Honestly, I wouldn't want Mr. Wright to be inducted at this point, because the whole point of Mr. Wright being inducted is to come out and cut a promo, and sadly, Mr. Wright is not with us anymore. Although if White Boy is still with us, White Boy could cut the promo for him.
Yeah.
I think White Boy is still alive.
As far as I know.
But anyway, the New York doctors also found out that Mr. Wright has asthmatic bronchitis. I'm just hoping it wasn't the same doctors who performed laser eye surgery.
As far as Wikipedia knows, Tony Anthony still alive and well, 64 years old.
Is he still married to the dirty white girl?
I don't know. Hope so.
Okay. She's going to be in Mid-South briefly, too. You know. Or not Mid-South. She's going to be in Smoky Mountain.
Wish nothing but the best to TL Hopper there.
Yes. And if you're not still married, hopefully, you know, you're with somebody you do love. But Mr. Wright says very specific number. He didn't have 500 chain matches. He didn't have 600 chain matches. He had 513 Tennessee chain matches. And of course, it was one of those UFC 1 records, where somebody comes out UFC 1, they were 250 and 1. It's like he lost one Tennessee chain match, and only because some idiot threw a bottle of liquor at his head.
Runway is the best.
In some ways, it's also perfectly believable that somebody threw a bottle of liquor at his head.
Oh yeah, I don't doubt that at all.
But that's probably not why he lost the Tennessee chain match. And he found his beloved Dirty White Boy to continue on this tradition. And White Boy says he's been training real hard and he's been beating up gangs in New York.
Just gangs in New York.
Yes. Hey, whatever is going to help you train. And hopefully they found out why that girl last week was screaming. Or was it? Yeah. So next up, we have a big debut. We have the debut of a future NWA World Heavyweight Champion in our first match. It is The Rock and Roll Express versus Mike Sampson and the Avenger. Did you look up to see who the Avenger was?
I did.
You don't sound as excited as I do.
Oh, so excited.
It's Chris Candido.
Love Chris Candido.
Some of you might be going, Chris Candido's a future NWA World Heavyweight Champion? Yes.
Yeah.
He's the person. Yeah.
Like next year.
Yeah. And actually, I think he's on Smoky Mountain TV with the title too. But
so.
He is the person that won the title in the tournament that happened after Shane Douglas threw down the belt. And
yes, he is.
And he's also the person that lost the title to Dan Severn when Severn went on his 4-year title reign.
Which I think was on a Smoky Mountain house show.
Maybe.
Erlanger, Kentucky.
The only time, I can almost guarantee, the NWA World Heavyweight title has ever changed hands in that particular town.
Certainly.
They announced that Bullet Bob has made a decision regarding the Heavenly Bodies Incorporation because he's been investigating them for a while, with them being a 3-man team. And I think everyone can kind of figure out where they're going with this, but they're going to announce it next week. And,
I'm imagining Bullet Bob in his office poring over law books, reading about incorporation law, trying to figure out how it applies to tag team championships.
Calling up Stephen P. New or the Legal Eagle guy. And
Legal Eagle.
Yes. I love his channel.
Yeah, big fan.
By the way, we have a couple tag team matches this week, and both times they get it fucking backwards. This match, they got the heat on Robert Gibson. And then the weird part is they get the heat on Gibson, so Morton gets the hot tag. They do the double drop kick, and Gibson's so used to getting the pin that even though he's not even a legal man, he times down too. So both Morton and Gibson pin the Avenger with a double drop kick, which should not be allowed.
Yeah. Morton's is the one that counts, in theory.
Yes. I'm not going to play because there's a lot of good audio and some really bad audio that I'm going to play anyway. But there's so much good audio to play the average Rock and Roll Express promo. But they talk about the street fight that happened yesterday, like it's going to happen in the future. My guess, and I didn't look this up, and I should have, I'm thinking they did the match more than once. But I could be wrong about that.
Trying to remember, they may have done that exact match What I think Knoxville or Johnson City or both. Go on and move on, and I'll look it up and confirm.
Well, we're gonna move on to Down and Dirty with Dutch. We cut out the beginning because Dutch starts it and he pitches it to a review of last week. And despite the fact that he is a pseudo babyface at this point, he does yell at the crowd to shut up. And then they show us last week where Tracy Smothers pinned Not That Jeff Daniels, and then Dirty White Boy ran in and beat his ass with the chain. And so from here, let's go to Dutch with Tracy Smothers.
Okay, we saw what happened last week. Tracy Smothers, my special guest on Down and Dirty with Dutch. I'm going to ask you something, Tracy. You're the next man who wants to try to wrest that Smoky Mountain heavyweight title away from the Dirty White Boy. And it's going to have to be done in a chain match. Let me tell you one thing. The chain match is Dirty White Boy's home ground, his home turf. He was passed the legacy from Ron Wright, and you're stepping in his backyard. Do you think you can take the title away from the White Boy in his own match?
Well, I'm going to tell you this, Dutch Mantel, and I'm going to tell every man, woman, and child in Hayside, Virginia, and the millions of people watching this TV right now, I'm going to stick that chain up that Dirty White Boy's buttocks sideways. Hey, Dirty White Boy, you got a lot of dues to pay, man. You burnt the Confederate flag. You cost me $5,000, and you cost me the Smoky Mountain heavyweight title. Ron Wright, you come out here and you say you hate these hillbillies, and you say you hate the coal miners. Well, then you hate me because I'm just like all of them. Because I'm a Southern red thoroughbred, guaranteed not to rust, bust. I'm going to tell you this now. I know that was your specialty, but let me tell you this, pal. That's all in the past. Babe Ruth used to hit home runs, and O.J. Simpson used to run touchdowns, Dutch Mantel. The ball game's over, pal. I don't care if you bring King Kong and Godzilla himself. In these chain matches, I'm going to be the next Smoky Mountain heavyweight champion.
All right, fans, there you heard it. From the wild-eyed Southern boy, Tracy Smothers, a man who wants to be the next Smoky Mountain heavyweight champion. Don't go away. We got to pay some bills. We'll be back in 2 minutes.
So O.J. Simpson used to run for touchdowns. And this is 1993, so that is what O.J. Simpson is known for. So,
and will never be known for anything else.
Watch that guy. The worst thing Grizzly Smith ever did was order Ted DiBiase to get a new partner to defend the tag titles with on Tuesday.
So I don't want to spoil anything, but the chain match, but it's fucking awesome.
Nice. I do have to ask a very important question.
What's that?
Is it necessarily worse to stick the chain up your buttocks sideways as opposed to normally?
Well, it's just part of the process, turning that sumbitch sideways.
Yes. But
by the way, they only did the 3-on-3-on-3 the one time. By the way, that match also fucking insane. They did Arn and the Rock and Roll against Lane and Pritchard and Eaton in Barberville, Kentucky, Johnson City, Knoxville, and then they did the three-way in Pikeville, Kentucky.
Huh, okay. So I was wrong. So we need a palate cleanser. By the way, I fired a promo and another great Tracy Smothers promo. Not quite at the level of everybody else, but not for the lack of try. However, we need a palate cleanser for all these great promos because you can't appreciate a great promo if you don't hear a shitty promo sometimes. And there's nobody in Smoky Mountain who exemplifies shitty promo any better than our next guest, White Lightning Tim Horner. Tim, let's go.
All right, fans, with us right now, here's White Lightning, Tim Horner, and Tim, no doubt, Jim Cornette and Bobby Eaton cost you a lot of money.
Well, last week, Bob, I was well on my way to winning $5,000. And Bobby Eaton, I know I could have beat Bobby Eaton. I had 2 wins under my belt. All I had to do was win 1 more. I knew I could beat Bobby Eaton, and so did that no-good Jim Cornette. That's why he jumped in there and hit me in the head with that tennis racket. Well, let me tell you something, Bobby Eaton.
I don't take it. I'm not taking this lightly. It was $5,000. That's a lot of money, Bob. That's a lot of money. So I put $5,000 of my own money up, and I've heard that they put their $5,000 up. So I'm challenging you, Bobby Eaton, somewhere across Smoky Mountain Wrestling area. I'm going to get you, and I'm going to get that $5,000 back.
All right, Tim Horner with a challenge match to Bobby Eaton, and I'm sure, or at least.
Okay, so normally on this show, I've instituted what's called the 20-second rule for Tim Horner promos. Tim Horner is typically perfectly fine and perfectly acceptable as long as he keeps his promos to 20 seconds. Unfortunately, he was already dead after within 20 seconds here. He just, like, first of all, he can't even math correctly. You know, you need 5 wins to get the $5,000, and he acknowledges that he's already won 2 matches. However, then he says he only needed to win 1 more. Tim, 2 + 1 = 3, not 5. Then
Math
is hard for some people.
Not Tim Horner's forte.
Maybe we need to see what they were teaching down in Morristown, Tennessee.
Look, I understand. Okay, I went to public school in Arkansas. They told us the dinosaurs died out because an asteroid turned them gay. I get it.
Of course. I can't imagine why else the dinosaurs went extinct for.
To the best of my knowledge, that's why. I've never been told any different.
He doesn't take this lightly. And we eventually figure out, because thankfully Kotter explains this in the next match. He's put up $5,000 of his own money. Jim Cornette is going to put up $5,000 of his money. And so then they're going to wrestle for $10,000.
Tim Horton. I'm sorry. Tim Horton.
Tim Horton's
gonna wrestle Jim Cornette. A main event in any arena in the world.
To be fair, I think he's gonna wrestle Bobby Eaton.
Tim Horton's gonna wrestle Bobby Eaton. Okay.
Yes, Tim Horton, which is apparently a great place to get coffee and donuts. I've never been to Canada, so I don't know that for a fact, but I'll take Canada's word for it.
You never been to Canada?
Nope, I've been to Niagara Falls on the American side. That's as close as I've gotten.
Sonny, you're so much closer than I am, and I've been to Canada.
Well, technically, you're closer to Australia than I am, and I've been to Australia.
You know what? That's a fair point.
We're gonna have to pull out the ruler to see if it's closer for me to go east to get to Australia, or closer for you to go west.
I think my trip to Canada was shorter than your trip to Australia.
I certainly hope so.
Even though, okay, it was okay. I did not have a direct flight to Canada. What I did at the time, I was living in northern Mississippi, so I had to drive about 90 minutes to Memphis, and then I flew from Memphis. Do you have you got your mental map of the United States in your head?
Yes, I do.
I flew from Memphis to Seattle via Charlotte.
Okay.
And it gets better. Our flight was delayed. Our flight out of Memphis, so we weren't going to make our connection. So they rebooked us. So by the end, we went from Memphis to Charlotte to Phoenix to Seattle.
Wow.
And then we stayed overnight, and we took the ferry over to Victoria, British Columbia.
So you snuck across the border in a boat?
No, had a passport and everything.
Wink, nudge.
They checked my passport on the boat.
Okay.
It was a nice boat ride. I had a Bloody Mary.
That's nice. Every time I ever hear Bloody Mary, I think about the Andre the Giant story that Bobby Heenan told about how he was sitting in first class and pulling up the armrest between the 2 seats, and the woman comes up and asks what he wants, and he says, "Screwdriver." And so they bring him a screwdriver, not orange juice and vodka, but like a tool, like a flathead. And he looks at them and says, "What would you have brought me if I said Bloody Mary?"
Outstanding.
That was better than Tim Horner, by the way. And so
Yes.
earlier today when I was watching this, I told you that this promo made me think of Kevin Owens. And
Yeah, and I couldn't even begin to imagine what you were saying.
so, mind you, it's important that I don't actually explain these things to you, so you hear them first thing on the show, which makes this either a great podcast or a bad podcast. Because if I told you, you might be able to repair yourself with a reply. But so after Cornette left Ring of Honor, Kevin Steen or Kevin Owens did a shoot interview, and he was talking about Cornette's booking in Ring of Honor. And one thing he brought up was the Briscoes and Haas and Benjamin had a feud, and one day that was Jim Cornette's idea. That one side put up $5,000 and the other side put up $5,000, and now they're going to wrestle for $10,000. And it was like, it's kind of a stupid premise if you really think about it, but it's what I thought of here. It's Kevin Owens doing a shoot interview.
Huh.
First,
That
last.
would be a hell of a shoot interview, Tim Horner and Kevin Owens.
First, last,
What
and
would
only
they-
time Tim Horner's ever been compared to Kevin Owens.
Look at Tim Horner. He's getting mentioned in the same sentence as all kinds of better wrestlers today.
Are we sure that I'm not drunk?
I didn't ask. I just assumed you had it under control.
Okay. I may have been drunk earlier today because I'm going to read what I wrote. Beat the Champ TV champ, Bobby Eaton, with Bobby Eaton in his corner versus Jimmy Golden. Bobby Eaton did not have himself in the corner. He had Jim Cornette. And so let me ask you, because Cottle, he's talking about Eaton being an athlete. And I could swear he called Eaton a whale of an athlete. However, it's possible that with his southern accent, he was saying hell of an athlete, but he said hail of an athlete. But I wrote whale.
I think Bob Cottle's too polite and gentlemanly to use such language.
Hell or whale?
Well, hell.
Okay. This is where they recap Horner's promo, since Horner did such a shitty job of explaining what the hell he was talking about. Yeah. And this was a damn good TV match. They did a weird spot where Eaton thought he won with a knee drop, but Golden had kicked out at 2. And maybe it's just me, but I didn't think that it was that close of a count that, it's like, oh, yes, I definitely won here. But, oh, well.
Yeah.
So Cottle reprimands Dutch at one point for not being objective, which, why the hell would he in this situation? Cornette whacks Golden with a racket, which leads to Fuller coming to the ring for immoral support. Eaton misses the Alabama jam, so Golden makes his comeback and hits the drop kick, which, because we never see him win a match, the drop kick is his finish, by the way. But Cornette put Eaton's foot on the ropes. Fuller goes after Corny, which distracts Mark Curtis. Curtis confronts Fuller while Golden locked on the abdominal stretch. Cornette rolled in and thwacked Golden with the racket, which let Eaton retain. And then this broke down into a 6-way brawl with Dutch, Stan, and Tom running in, and the stud stable were left standing tall.
Was there any move that's worse for your long-term well-being than a diving leg drop?
I mean, Hogan was pretty fucked up just doing a regular leg drop. I mean, Psychosis, Bob Eaton passed away, but Psychosis is still alive. Someone should probably ask him.
Ask Matt Hardy about that the one off the cage.
Oh yeah, against Edge. That fucked
Yeah.
him up.
It's like guys trash their knees doing moonsaults, but then I don't know, it it feel I may be wrong, but it feels to me like it would be worse to do what that fucking leg drop does to your hips.
Well, somehow we missed the opportunity to have Great Muta and Bobby Eaton do a shoot interview together.
Actually, Great Muta and Bobby Eaton would rule.
I'd say do Great Muta and Hulk Hogan, but I mean, it would be like having a shoot interview with Hulk Hogan and Vince Russo. You can't believe a goddamn thing ever said.
One of them doesn't speak English, and the other one is Japanese. Speaking of knees, I'll never forget.
Speaking of these,
no, it reminded me. So, WrestleMania weekend in Dallas in 2016, was walking out of the WrestleCon hotel because I had just gone to WrestleCon to do some, mark picks and stuff, and I see this very old, struggling Japanese man getting out of a cab, and I looked, and it was the Great Muta. And the way that man was walking, you could tell he had no fucking knees left. Like, I have never seen somebody walking in so much pain.
And he kept wrestling for years.
Until fucking last year.
Yeah. Until 2023. Which is just insane.
Would not have stopped if he hadn't pretty much had to physically.
It's crazy, and hopefully he can live out the rest of his life as well as possible.
Yeah.
But we haven't had a 5-star promo in a while. So let's go to Bob Kotter with Robert Fuller.
All right, fans, right now here's the stud stable right in front of the Jimmy Golden. We got a little preview there of what I think a street fight's going to be like.
I'm going to tell you something. You ain't got no preview. You got Jim Cornette meddling from the outside as usual. You meddle against the three of the stud stable, son, and it ain't going to be no picnic. I'm going to guarantee you one thing. Dutch Mantel and Jimmy Golden and the Tennessee stud can't sleep at night thinking about one thing, a three-team street fight. Anything goes. Come as you are. Bring what you want. I'm going to guarantee you something, Cornette. And you go out there, all you people, and tell your pretty boy Rock and Roll Express, because they're going to get a taste of the same. The stud stable is going to go hard on everybody in Smoky Mountain. And one thing's going to be proven. This right here is the finest team this darn area ever seen.
He's going to be gone in a month. He's going to be gone in a month. It is
tragedy.
Really, yeah.
What a shame.
And it's like, yeah, he was a manager in WCW, and he cuts, promos all the time in WCW, but it's like, it's not the same. Because, I mean, even at the end of the day, it's still the homogenized WCW, and, he's not going to get away with saying half the stuff he said on this show. And, it's a 55-second promo total, including Cottle's introduction, and 5 stars. It's like,
absolutely.
If this was April 3rd, 1993, I would want a time machine to go back in time one day so I could go to the Bluegrass Brawl. Because he's talking me into the seats here. And it's like,
I'm gonna miss Robert Fuller and how goddamn unhinged he is.
Like, we get a lot of stud stable promos that aren't really stud stable promos. They're Robert Fuller promos. And it's like, we never hear from Golden. We rarely hear from Dutch, and we don't need to. Like, that's the best part. It's like, and actually, well, I'm just kind of ranting right now, and I'm assuming you have something to say. I'm looking to see how long Jimmy Golden's here? Because he doesn't go to WCW for a year.
I think he's gonna hang around for a while. I think he, as far as I know, he hangs around. He hangs around Smoky Mountain until he goes to be Bunkhouse Buck in about a year.
Actually, he's only here till June 11th. And even that's just a house show. Looking here, I mean, I'm sure they're going to cut promos and everything, but his last televised match is going to be episode number 67.
Which is
4 episodes away.
Oh, well, that's a shame. Was he let's see, when did he, because he didn't wrestle again after that June until he started WCW after the first of the year. Wonder if he was injured or something.
Let me see here. Are you actually looking at that? Oh yeah, that's looking at it. It's possible he gets injured in that Brian Lee match. The spoilers, the last match is Primetime Brian Lee. He does lose by count out, so that could be it. Yeah, because he doesn't wrestle again until January.
Yeah.
Interesting. And then, of course, and it reminded me when I looked at the whatchamacallit, he once was in WWE as Jack Swagger's dad.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And Dutch was Uncle Zeb.
Zeb Coulter. Actually,
I'm sorry. He wasn't Jack Swagger's uncle. He was the Godwin's uncle. Is that right?
I think he was the Harris twins uncle.
The Harris twins. He was Uncle Zebekiah to somebody.
Yeah. And then actually I think Dirty White Boy was the Godwin's manager for like a minute. I think he was Uncle
Cletus. They had a manager. Yeah. Was Dirty White Boy Uncle Cletus?
I think so, but it was like such a brief thing that I could be horribly wrong, but I thought it was Dirty White Boy.
Yeah. Okay, Dirty White Boy was Uncle Cletus.
Yeah, I mean he was only there for like 2 weeks, so it's like there's only so much you can remember from it. All right, so Robert Fuller came out and dropped a 5-star promo about Jim Cornette and the Heavenly Bodies. It's time for a rebuttal. And Jim Cornette is of the belief here that anything you can do, I can do better. You want to do a 5-star promo? I'm going to do one even better here. Let's go to Jimmy with the Heavenly Bodies and Bob Caudle.
All right, fans, we just heard, of course, from the stud stable in here is Jim Cornette and the Heavenly Bodies. I tell you, the stable, they're ready, Jim.
Ready for what? Ready for what? Ready for the retirement home? Ready for Alcoholics Anonymous? What are they ready for? Maybe they're ready to go home. Yeah, you'd hate to be in my shoes because they'd be real tight on those big fat feet of yours. I'll tell you what the stud stable are ready for. The stud stable are ready to sit at home on Sunday afternoon, put their feet up, drink beer like the rest of these rednecks, and watch football, and leave us competing in sports to the real men. Beautiful Bobby, the TV champion, beat the champ title holder. The Heavenly Bodies, the Smoky Mountain Tag Team Champions, and Stud Stable. The street fight match, the 3-team street fight match is going to take care of you real handily. But as for the Rock and Roll Express, I've come to the conclusion that rock and roll, we can beat you, we can break your leg, break your neck, break your arm, we can hurt you time after time after time, and it still won't get rid of you. Because you don't know when to quit. You're so stupid you don't know when you're beat. So I tell you what we're going to do to the Rock and Roll Express. We're going to embarrass Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson right out of Smoky Mountain Wrestling. We're going to embarrass them out of the whole organization and maybe all of wrestling combined. Because if we can't beat them out, then we'll laugh them out. And now, you see what I got here in my pocket? You see, Bob Armstrong ain't here today. He's probably out trying to find some way to con somebody else out of something, but I got a little injunction here. Because you see, so far, the Beat the Champ Challenger is picked at the top of every program.
whoever the champion is doesn't have time to respond or react or train or plan. Well, this changes all that, because I argued in court, and rightfully so, that a man needs a chance to prepare for his challenger. So this injunction means that the Beat the Champ challenger will be picked now every week, a week ahead. Okay. And what I want you to do right now, I want you to get that hat full of names, and I want you to pick Bobby Eaton's challenger in next week's program. Go ahead. Hey, I'm sick and tired of all these ringers you've been picking. Jimmy Golden, you think that was chance? You think I believe that? You're crazy. Here, I'll hold it. I'll hold it. What's the name? We can whip anybody. Makes no difference, Doug.
You can see
We'll
I'm
slap
not looking.
the taste out of their mouth.
Oh, my golly.
Who is it?
Oh,
Who is
you
it?
want to read it or you want me to
You
read
read
it?
it. I don't want to read it. I don't care.
I want you to look at it. Tom Pritchard. Yeah, Tom Pritchard.
No.
Tom
You-
Pritchard. There it is, Jim.
Wait a minute. What's these other names say? They're all the same. They got to be all the same. They ain't all the same. What?
No.
Well, wait a
Tom
minute. Well,
Pritchard's the one up
okay, I'll tell you what. I'm gonna tear this injunction up.
No,
we don't
no,
need the injunction.
no.
We don't need the injunction. We'll just, no.
I wouldn't mind having the match anyway.
No, wait.
Come on, TV.
You don't want the match. You don't want the match.
Jim. We'll see who can wrestle and who
You know, Tom doesn't want the match. Tom does not want the match. He doesn't want the match.
I think you did a hell of a job, Bob. I'll take the match with you.
There's no reason for it. There's no reason for this.
I think there's $1,000.
You've done this. You did this. You and Bob Armstrong. You and Bob Armstrong. Stan, we got to get him out of here. Let's go. Go, guys. Right now.
All right, fans, you saw it, and that's it.
Okay. So, a 5-star promo, a 5-star freak out. Let's give him all the stars, because, that was just
So fucking great.
Yeah.
So fucking great.
It's like,
God damn.
we're going to miss these promos here in a few months here, because, again, Fuller's leaving, Corny's always going to be corny, but it's like the unofficial contest to have the best promos on the show is going to end soon. Especially since Mr. Ron Wright.
Kind of seems like Smoky Mountain's in a little bit of a golden age right now with its roster.
And I know that it's sad that it's like all this great shit is happening before they really take off. And, not that they ever become, WWE or WCW levels or whatever, but it's like, come next year, come 95, they are, doing 4,000 or 5,000 people to their big shows. So it's like, hey, that's something, especially during this period, which was definitely a down period in wrestling popularity.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll talk about it more next week, but man, the top 2 matches on the Bluegrass Brawl, the Tennessee Chain match and the Great Smoky Mountain Showdown, the street fight, both of those matches were fucking awesome.
Not just regular awesome, but fucking awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So Corny points out they have all the championships. They said Stud Stable is going to be taken care of, and they're already setting the stage for the next part of the Rock and Roll Express feud. Corny said that they are going to embarrass Ricky and Robert out of wrestling, and then he pulls out the injunction. Who knew that you can have an injunction with only one side arguing in court? Because I'd like to think that Bullet Bob had to be there to represent Smoky Mountain, to represent the opposite side here. But he has an injunction that says that no longer will the Beat the Champ challenger be chosen on the day of the show. They will now get picked a week in advance, which I'd like to see how far that lasts, because I don't think it lasts very long. In fact, I'm almost sure of it. But
yeah, it seemed like this was just they had to come up with an explanation so they could. This was just a pretext to announce that they're going to do Bobby and Tom next week.
Yeah, and Corny has a 5-star freak out. He's checking to make sure that all the names in the hat weren't the same, and he's like, "Oh, they don't want to wrestle each other." And Tom and Bobby are like, yeah, we'd like to. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
It's so good.
like I said, it's sad that we're at the end of the Bobby Eaton run in Smoky Mountain, but enjoy it while it lasts.
I have. I've enjoyed it so much.
Well, we've missed it the last few weeks, but Kevin Sullivan is back in therapy. And it's the last bit of audio we have for this week.
You know what?
Mhm.
You know what?
I know.
I bet that they sent Bullet Bob a summons to the Smoky Mountain offices that he needed to go to court for this hearing, but it was the same secretary that accidentally signed off on Smoky Mountain paying for Kevin Sullivan's therapy.
That woman should be fired.
Was
Like
it Pam?
it might have been Pam.
Fucking Pam. Couldn't do anything right.
It's like, Jesus Christ, this company's like fucking what's his name's money is not stretching far enough here. Now we're having him to pay for Sullivan's daily therapy sessions. But let's go to Kevin Sullivan, who's at home with his doctor and with breasts.
Oh, what a lovely bunch of grapes. You know, sometimes this therapy gets real hard. But Brian Lee, Timmy Horner, or anybody else that wants to get in my way. You see, Smoky Mountain Wrestling is paying for my therapy, and I'm feeling a lot better. But it isn't gonna stop me from doing what I want to do, because I have been persecuted, I have been looked down upon, and I have been made to feel unwelcome in Smoky Mountain Wrestling. I'm gonna take this out on everybody, starting with that horsehead Brian Lee. You see, Brian Lee, when I get through with you, all the king's horses, all the king's men ain't gonna glue your big head back together again. It's gonna go this way, Brian Lee. It's a lovely bunch of grapes, and the grapes of wrath are gonna fall on your head. I'm feeling a lot better.
I'd feel better too if women's breasts were feeding me grapes.
Yeah. that was also my only note on this segment, was that it was about Nancy feeding Sullivan grapes.
Yes. Now, of course, we're quote unquote only assuming that it's Nancy. I mean, I think it's a safe assumption because we heard her a few weeks ago. And I can't imagine Kevin's running around and getting other well-endowed women to feed him grapes on the show. But
yeah, if you find a well-endowed woman who will feed you grapes, you gotta stick with her.
So who's got a bigger head, you think? Boris Zirkov or Primetime Brian Lee?
Zirkov's is shinier.
Indeed it is. Although we've never seen Primetime Brian Lee with a bald head.
Shame.
Primetime Brian Lee, if you're listening to this, and I don't imagine why you wouldn't be,
Yeah.
are you bald? How do you look bald? You were teaming with the Harris twins for a year in WWF. Why didn't you shave your head? You could have been the third Harris twin. Ron, Don, and Sean Harris.
Oh, God.
This is why I'm not a booker. This is, we were talking about TEW on the Tuesday show. This is why TEW isn't always perfect, because when you have fantastically awful booking ideas like this, it doesn't necessarily matter, as long as, everything continues to run smoothly.
Maybe I should do get a 1993 mod and push Tim Horner as my top star and see how long it takes to go out of business.
The second you choose Tim Horner as your figurehead, you immediately get notified that the company's gone out of business.
Game over. Game over.
Well, speaking of Tim, thunder rolls and the
God damn
lightning
it.
strikes. Well, I guess the good news is the song didn't play this week because Primetime Brian Lee's song played instead. It was Tim Horner and Primetime Brian Lee versus Kevin Sullivan and the Nightstalker. The heels come out, but they don't go to the ring and instead meet the faces on the floor for a poorly lit brawl. What is with this week's shows and poor lighting?
A dark match.
Haha. Thankfully, they got in the ring as the brawl continued. Dutch brings up Kanemaru, allegedly needing 125 stitches and is still out of action. Plus, the Japanese promotion, capital T, capital J, capital P, is trying to ban Sullivan from ever wrestling in Japan again.
You know, I always struggle to come up with company name ideas for my my various fantasy scenarios. I think I'm gonna go with TJP, the Japanese promotion.
And you're gonna push TJ Perkins as your top wrestler?
Why wouldn't I?
I can't imagine why not.
Main event of the first show, TJP versus Tim Horner.
Now we're going with TJP in 1993, where, you know, I don't know when the hell he was born, but he was pretty fucking young when he got signed to WWE. So, baby TJP in 93, or are we talking older, lost my election Tim Horner?
No, we're talking TJP now against Tim Horner now. Unless I can get the time machine working before then.
Wow. But by the way, speaking of TJP, is he still doing the gimmick he debuted at the Tokyo Dome?
So yes, it's kind of a on a special occasion thing. He did it, I think, in the War Dogs against United Empire cage match back in February, and then one of it was like the group finals for Best of the Super Junior. I think when he wrestled Teton, he did the As-Long, and he won because it was like it's just a more super powered version of TJP.
It was the great Muta to TJP's KJ Muto.
Indeed.
By the way, to continue the show being backwards, they got the heat on Primetime Brian Lee. You know, 6'6", 280 pounds.
My God. So they're getting the heat on Brian Lee, and I'm just getting more and more aggravated.
Because you know,
I knew
a hot tag is happening.
I knew it was building to a Tim Horner hot tag. And I'm sorry, just psychologically, this did not work for me because no amount of build is going to make me excited about a Tim Horner hot tag.
So that was your problem with the psychology of this, not the we're getting the heat on this 6'6" guy.
Look, there was a lot wrong with this match psychologically, okay?
Although I marked out because while they were double teaming Primetime Brian Lee, Horner hits the ring and little fucking Mark Curtis manhandles Horner, shoving him back into the corner.
Curtis is like secretly a badass.
Hey, remember on Nitro when somebody jumped the guardrail and he double legged them and took them down?
Last week when he fucking leapfrogged those guys?
Oh my God, yes.
Holy shit.
Mark Curtis belongs in like every Hall of Fame.
Yes, he does. God rest him.
Not even just like wrestling Hall of Fame, like the Pro Basketball Hall of Fame. Put in Mark Curtis.
Why not? Why not?
He has mad hops. He could have been Nate Robinson. But Sullivan hits Primetime Brian Lee in the inner thigh with his pipe. No, he didn't do a low blow, nor did he hit Brian Lee with his penis. he did an inner thigh blow with a metal pipe. Lee fires up and runs into Sullivan's boot. So yes, Sullivan, 5'6" Kevin Sullivan, got his foot all the way up to Primetime Brian Lee's face, which is just tremendous. Then we get Trae's favorite moment where Horner got the hot tag and ran wild. Curtis got distracted by Sullivan and Primetime Brian Lee fighting. So Tazmaniac runs in. He goes for a top rope splash, but Horner moves out of the way and Taz splashes Nightstalker, and Horner picks up the win.
Or Taz.
Even poor, like, I didn't realize he was shorter than Kevin Sullivan.
Taz is very short.
Yeah, I mean, I knew that, but Sullivan, is tiny. But, yeah, they do an end of the show promo that I'm not going to play because it wouldn't have added anything to this show to play it. But the point is, he is mad at the Nightstalker for losing the match. Not at Taz for botching the finish and costing his team the match, but at Nightstalker for doing the JOB.
Again, not to spoil it, but something might happen at the Bluegrass Brawl.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
And he tells him not to forget who the master is and who the follower is. And yeah. So 62 down, 138 to go. A 5.5-star episode of Smoky Mountain this week. And Cornette gets our MVP, whatever you want to call it, performer of the week. Just because on a show of amazing 5-star promos, he got the 6th star. And
we know how much Jim Cornette loves star ratings.
Yes, he came up with them with Norm Dooley. But before we go, there's a couple things I want to do. But first of all, what else is happening this week in wrestling? And we kind of referenced it at the beginning of the show. It's April 3rd, 1993, and what happens in the first week of April or the last week in March usually? WrestleMania. WrestleMania 9 happened this week, and I think we all know the results, and I think we all know the response to the show. There were a small handful of people who did enjoy the, at the time, unique twist at the end of the show, where Yokozuna beat Bret Hart for the WWF title, and then Mr. Fuji clinched the award for Worst Manager of 1993 as he immediately challenges Hulk Hogan to an impromptu title match, and Hogan walks away with the belt.
And Yokozuna was so disgusted with the job that Mr. Fuji did of manager that he went to his hotel and he watched Smoky Mountain Wrestling and he saw Jim Cornette and he said, "That's the guy I need to be my mouthpiece."
I like to think that Las Vegas got the Smoky Mountain show.
Yeah.
I can't imagine why not.
Las Vegas is already kind of God's blind spot, so who the fuck knows?
Also on that card, The Undertaker defeated Giant Gonzalez by disqualification, meaning The Undertaker is 3-0 at WrestleMania.
Think I'll go anywhere?
I think he might win one or two more matches, but I think we're gonna stop talking about it in 1995. I think for whatever reason we just will never bring it up again.
Yeah.
And then, we talked about you watching WCW Saturday Night. Well, spoiler for something coming up in your future. The April 5th Saturday Night tapings that will air on April 10th is when Cactus Jack challenges Vader to a match. And then they tape the first of the two matches that Cactus and Vader have, where, spoiler alert, Vader beats the holy living fuck out of Mick Foley.
So one of the guys working these WCW shows around this time is a big, tall, handsome fella named Big Sky. You familiar with Big Sky?
Familiar-ish. I was more thrown off by you talking about how handsome he is.
Well, fairly speaking, but I did not realize, I did not put together that guy is Tyler Mane. He played Sabretooth in the 2000 X-Men movie, and more of interest to me, played Michael Myers in the Rob Zombie Halloween films.
Interesting.
Did not realize that Michael Myers was Big Sky.
Yeah. Tyler Mane, by the way, was the man's. I mean, yes, he is a very handsome man. You were not lying.
Never.
I mean, I'm sure at some point you've lied. And yeah. So before we go, one of the things I like to do to you is I like to just randomly play promos to you and not warn you ahead of time. You know, a few weeks ago I played the Tim Horner, Mr. Horndorf promo, and you may have seen this because I dropped it on my YouTube page and then dropped it on Facebook. But it's January 2001. It's an episode of WCW Thunder, and Don Harris is in a neck brace, and the Harris twins are about to be interviewed by Scott Hudson, and they're going to explain what's going on, and I would like your reaction to this promo.
Ron and Don Harris, you were conspicuous by your absence Monday night on Nitro. You've asked for this exclusive interview time here on Thunder. Heavy D, my question for you, sir, what's with the cervical collar?
Well, it's kind of hard for me to talk, but the reason for our absence on Nitro was due to the horrible accident I suffered last week. I actually ruptured the vertebrae in my neck.
That was against the Monster Ming.
Yes, it was, and if you roll the footage, I want everybody to see what happened, please.
All right, well, let's roll that videotape.
Okay, here you can see the guy's crazy. He's totally out of control. After that, they took me to the hospital. The doctors told me I could never wrestle again. The slightest thing and snap, my head could actually fall right off of my shoulders. That is sad, sad.
That's a sad situation, Ron Harris.
I mean, there's no doubt life's dealt my brother a sad hand. But that doesn't mean I'm not ready to go. And with the full support of my crippled brother, I'm ready to embark on a singles career here in WCW. And this goes to anybody in the back. If you want a piece of me, one-on-one, you know where to find me.
Hey, Norman Smiley is here to answer that challenge. If you think that you're so tough, I'm going to prove to you tonight that I'm going to kick your tushy and I am the man.
See you in about 3 minutes, then.
3 minutes is fine with me.
We'll be done with you in 4 minutes.
Scott, these guys don't know what they're in for.
So what are your thoughts about Don Harris and his neck injury that could lead to his head falling off his shoulders?
I mean, are we sure that it wasn't already just hanging on by a thread?
I mean, it's possible. Thanks to Meng, loosening it up last week on Thunder.
Ming's got that reputation of being a pretty bad dude.
Yeah. Now, I wish I would have saved it or at least noted when it was, and it may have been this match, but this was when Norman Smiley, they were doing the gimmick where Glacier was coming back, because we got to talk about Glacier on every show apparently, and they're doing the gimmick where Glacier was coming back and Norman was marking out for it, and so there was a match. No, actually, it wasn't this match because he was wrestling Mike Awesome. And Norman was like, he goes to Glacier and he's like, he wants him to come out and help him because Mike Awesome has Lance Storm and Elix Skipper in his corner. And Glacier's like, don't worry, I'll be there. And while Norman's getting his ass kicked, Glacier's music starts and he slowly makes his way to the ring and shakes hands with all the fans and does the katas and all of the Glacier stuff. And then, of course, Mike Awesome kills Norman to death while Glacier's just like still being Glacier.
I remember that. They did like all this build to Glacier coming back, and then wasn't that it?
I think that was actually it.
He did that segment and then was never seen again.
Yes. And it's funny because he had like brand new gear. Like, because remember, like he had that old helmet that he sold to Kaz Hayashi, which is another one of those gimmicks. Like, That's what the Young Dragons were missing, was Kaz Hayashi in his Glacier gear.
Speaking of Kaz Hayashi, just had his retirement match earlier today as we are recording this.
Really?
So wanna wish send our well wishes to Kaz Hayashi and congratulate him on an excellent career.
Hey, he almost won the X Division title one time.
He did.
Yes, it was him, Samoa Joe, and Low Key.
It was a good match on a very bad show.
Oh yeah, we were talking about Muta earlier. That was the Great Muta and Tajiri versus James Storm and Sonata. And this is when Sonata was doing a Great Muta gimmick.
It was a very bad show. The opener between Minoru Tanaka and Manic, who, speaking of TJP, that was TJP. They had a very good match, and then the Joe Kaz Hayashi low-key match. Funnily enough, that's like one of the few wrestling things that my wife will regularly reference, because when that show happened, we were listening to the Brian and Vinny review of it, and they talked about the spot when Ryota Hama did the running charge and turned and hit the hip attack in the corner on EC3. They called it the Assalanche. So my wife will reference the Assalanche on occasion.
That's nice of her. I have a friend, and she heard me listen to the Brian and Vinny show once and thought he was Paul Rudd.
I don't. That's so weird.
I would like to hear Paul Rudd do a wrestling podcast.
This is weird because Paul Rudd is a pretty energetic dude, but Paul Rudd is like to get Paul Rudd from Brian Alvarez, you would have to give Brian like a Quaalude and an epidural from the neck up.
Well, to be fair, we weren't watching the video version.
That's true.
So Paul Rudd, if you're listening to this, and I can't imagine why you wouldn't be, which, by the way, I've only said that line like 10 times this week, but Paul Rudd, come onto the show if you like. You know,
yeah,
we'd love to have you, Paul Rudd.
Let's talk about Smoky Mountain Wrestling with fucking Ant-Man.
Can you imagine? We could play him the Rob Fuller Von Erich thing promo.
Oh god, yeah.
We then may get a cease and desist letter faster than Katsubula sent one to Bill Watts. or we'll end up in court. Hopefully, if we get sued by Paul Rudd, you and I don't end up in like a CM Punk Colt Cabana situation where we end up having to sue each other and you know.
I am what you call judgment proof.
Hey, so am I. So, our lawyers would really hate us for more than one reason.
Yeah.
All right. So now that we've discussed Welcome Back Kotter and Drew Carey and traveling to Canada and the Great Muta's knees and TJ Perkins and Don Harris's head and Glacier and Kaz Hayashi and Bound for Glory 2014 and Paul Rudd, is there anything else you want to talk about here before we finish things up?
No.
Okay. We've been going at this for 3 hours. So, sounds good. We'll press stop now and, I'll go and do a wee bit of editing and then throw a show up or two. But thank you to everyone for listening. I hope you all enjoyed it. And we'll talk to you again in 7 days.
Bye.